Hey everyone, welcome back to the Goal Getter podcast. This week we're chatting with Katherine Tinsley, a writer, editor, and the founder of Josefina, a tequila brand rooted in sustainability, cultural pride, and radical transparency. A proud Black Puerto Rican woman from Chicago's South Side, Katherine launched Josefina right out of college to honor her late grandmother and to carve out a space in an industry that too often excludes Black and Hispanic founders. With her background in storytelling and her vision for legacy-driven luxury, she's redefining what ownership and empowerment looks like within the spirits world. Katherine, I've been following you on your journey through LinkedIn the past few months, so I'm super excited for this conversation. Thank you so much for being here.
Likewise.
So let's just go back from the beginning. I'm from Mexico, so I'm very familiar with tequila. It's not my drink of choice nowadays, but it was when I was 18. So, Katherine, where did you grow up? Where did you go to school? As a kid, did you think you were going to be owning a tequila brand?
Yeah. Well, I definitely did not think I'd own a tequila brand as a kid, for sure. But I am from Chicago, born and raised here, lived here my whole life, and I was educated on the South Side up until college. So I've really, truly am like the product of the South Side, I feel. And I went to Sarah Lawrence for undergrad. I studied economic theory there. I interned at Elle and Cosmo, and like the typical like magazine dream I think a lot of girls have. That was I think where I envisioned myself or what I was curious about. I don't think I necessarily had a specific path I wanted to be on. I see people and like they're 3 and they're like, I want to be a doctor as a toddler with like a tooth missing. And I am so envious of those people because they know so early in life their path so clearly versus I have been the person who like throws spaghetti at the wall and waits for something to stick. So I tried modeling. I thought I was going to become an art curator. Then I thought I was going to be an economist. Then I ended up interning at Elle and Cosmo and ended up in the magazine space. And now I'm a tequila brand owner and founder and crowdfunding and an entrepreneur and a business student. And so my life has had so many pivots. And while I think on the surface and on paper, they don't seem related, I think every challenge and every skill has prepared me for every other phase. I think of when I was a sales girl at Aritzia and styling people because I couldn't afford to not work. But, working in media, those first few gigs you get are not paid. And I remember, pulling for people, convincing people to, purchase puffer coats like my life depended on it because it kind of did. And that kind of hustle, I think, has applied to every other phase of my life. So they all kind of ended up coming together very beautifully. But I did not plan this path, at a young age or even as a college student.
I think that is a really super interesting topic, actually. It's always interesting to hear if people knew what they wanted to do when they were young or didn't, or if they're kind of in the middle where they kind of had an idea like, I want to be an entrepreneur, but not sure what for, or I've always had that little bit of spark inside me, but it's interesting to see how it's kind of all played out. So you, as you said, you launched Josefina basically straight out of college, which is a super bold move. Can you walk us through those early steps? You just went over a little bit where you were career-wise, but how did you find the courage to take that leap straight out of school and building that brand so young?
Yeah. I don't know if I consider it courage as much as faith. And I think that is the thing that I really think keeps me going. I don't necessarily know if I see myself as courageous or brave. I just have this really strong faith that if God puts something on your heart, you have to keep trying because, you have that dream for a reason. And that's what keeps me waking up every day. However, as far as being a college student, I, like so many Gen Zers, lost my early 20s to a pandemic, right? So I didn't get to learn about alcohol in the club or going to bars or bar hopping with people. I was going to Benny's, which if you're familiar with Chicago, Benny's is a huge liquor store here. It's like the square footage of a Costco, but it's just alcohol. So any brand you
Wow.
could probably envision is in a Benny's. And so I'm 21. I am spending a little bit of money I have from working at a Benny's with a mask on my mom, and she's educating me on wine and champagne. And I'm thinking, I don't really think I like this. Like, she's talking to me about it. She's so excited because this is like her activity where we're trying to be normal in a pandemic. And I don't like the way that tastes. I don't like the way that I wake up bloated. I don't like that I have a headache. But when it came to drinking tequila, my body reacted very differently to it. Now, the great thing about turning 21 is I got gifted a lot of alcohol. So I got to also like taste, why does this taste different than this? Why does this have a different texture than this tequila here? Why does this have a different smell, flavor palette? So those kind of questions I was asking because primarily I'm isolated and I'm having cocktails on Zoom with friends instead of, being out and about and having the 21-year-old dreams I thought I would have. I thought I'd be at One Oak in Vegas or something, and that's not what 21 looked like at all. But that kind of experience and isolation, I think, breeds curiosity. And while being in the Bennies, I was asking more and more questions. And, I'm asking about representation, ownership, quality, additives, which is in most of the tequilas on the market here in the US. And once I kind of had all these questions, I first thought maybe I'll do a tequila tasting room. And then my mom was like, the pandemic, we're in this thing right now. This could happen
Mm.
again. This could keep going. Like, this could be a forever part of our life. Having a tasting room might not be the smartest business idea if this kind of isolation is going to be a normal for us. And then I started thinking, maybe I'll do some more research on tequila. And I started watching videos from a manufacturer on YouTube and ended up just calling them in Mexico. And my mom probably hated the phone bill charge, but that kind of sparked this journey. But I'm still a college student. I'm still a broke college student. I'm still trying to, get into the workforce. And I decided, I'll just incorporate it. And then I got a job at Good Housekeeping. And then I got a job at OK and Grazia USA and moved back to New York. And so while I had this dream, I also was actively pursuing a career in media. And I still work in media technically. I still work in the magazine world. And so it kind of just got pushed on the back burner. And then I think about last year, I was living in New York. My job had gone completely remote, which then gives me the flexibility to make time for Josefina. But I also was thinking, okay, I'm not going into office anymore in New York. My lifestyle here is completely different. I don't know if I'm happy here. I don't know if I'm fulfilled here. I need to come home, regroup, recenter. And I ended up applying to business school because I was like, my parents were entrepreneurs. I watched them succeed. I also watched them fail. I really feel like education and the lack of it is why, they ended up in certain situations. So I was like, I'm going to apply to business school. I got in. And I'm going to come home and focus on Josefina. And that's kind of been what I've been doing. Did I think it was going to take this long? Did I think I had to do the crowdfunding route? Not necessarily, but I also know it's harder for me, so it's easier for the next person.
Hmm.
That's a great story. And Josefina is such a beautiful name. So can you share with us the story of your grandmother and why you wanted the brand to carry her legacy?
Yeah, I think for me, my grandmother passed my freshman year of college. So it was really weird for me. I think in a lot of Black and Latin families, we do have complex dynamics. And, my mom and my grandma had this big fight and they weren't speaking and we never got to say goodbye. And I think that when someone passes and, you don't have that reckoning moment or that moment of, saying how you really feel about someone, that is kind of a hole or a void that you can never really fill. And so I think I was experiencing grief for the first time because my grandma was really the only grandparent I got to grow up with. My mom's stepdad, who I called grandpa, died when I was a toddler. My dad's parents died when I was about like 7 or 8. So my grandma lived with me. I saw my grandma every single day while she lived with us. I gave up my childhood bedroom so she could move in with us. So I was with my grandma all the time. And with that, I learned so much about style and fashion and jewelry from her. And even as complex of a woman that she was, there's also so many aspects of how I show up in the world that I think was molded by her. There's so many ways I show up in the world that I think was also molded by the fact that I grew up in a different generation and I was able to see how the world she inherited molded her as a woman and how I got to experience things so differently because of the sacrifices of her, even my mom, who's a baby boomer. And while going through grief and going through trying to understand her as a woman, because I do think we have to really understand our ancestors so that we can do better, that kind of sparked this desire to honor her in some way. And it ended up being this. And even with Josefina, to me, that was a reclaiming of identity as well. I think Puerto Ricans here in the States have been pressured to assimilate so much. Many of us grew up speaking English in our homes, not Spanish. And when my grandma came here, she changed her name to Josephine to navigate life in New York and then later Ohio. And so to me, it's a reclamation of history and heritage. And I hope people feel that when they drink the bottle or drink the spirit, because I want people to feel proud of who they descend from and where they come from, even if it's not perfect. I always say our ancestors don't have to be perfect to be honored. And I think that's really important with the messaging of the brand.
It's really beautiful, and I think it's such a powerful take on history also. I think a lot of people when they move, especially to the US, just
Yeah.
as your example, people tend to be like, "Okay, I wanna fit in, but almost too much," you have to honor where you're from, honor your history, and I think that's really beautiful. at your look on it.
Thank you.
So kind of looking at it from the industry standpoint, though, I'm super curious your take on this. So the spirits industry has historically not been very inclusive. What are some of the biggest challenges you've faced as a woman founder, no background in the spirits industry, just coming in head first, jumping in? What have you seen as a struggle, and have you felt welcome into the space at all? So people reached out and been like, "We'd love to have you in this conversation," or has it not been like that?
I feel like it's layered, and I think there's so many aspects of my identity that make it complicated, right? Because I'm also not only a woman, not only am I Latin, not only am I Black, but I'm also 20-something years old, right? So I think a lot of people, if they don't have an issue with, the gender or the race or the ethnicity, they might be
Yep.
uncomfortable with the fact that I'm 20-something saying this isn't working. And so I think there has been, I don't want to say pushback necessarily, because there have been people in the space who have been very welcoming and have become mentors and have become people I can call to ask for questions about just even like the legal framework of everything, because there is just so much you have to go through in spirits that I'm still like actively going through to get us to the 2026 launch. So I would say the biggest thing is, I think because of the complexities of identity, I think a lot of people don't get it. And I think that we also live in an interesting climate right now where I think diversity makes people uncomfortable. And I always say, well, you diversify your stock portfolio all the time. Why can't the shelves also be diverse? Why can't people have ownership, and why can't people feel represented in what they're purchasing? That shouldn't be controversial to ask.
Mm-mm.
So I think that those are the kinds of questions as far as diversity goes. As far as my own questions as a consumer, I think there's this idea that maximize profits, but I think consumers are getting a lot smarter. And I do think consumers want products that align with them, not just in identity, but also in values. And I also think consumers want to know what they are drinking. I think it's completely insane that I can go to a farmer's market and I can go ask the farmer what this chicken ate before I crack my egg. But I cannot ask a brand openly what is in my tequila. I mean, even with the recent lawsuits of a brand I won't be naming where they've been accused of mixing other alcohols in their tequilas, right? Like that is a concern consumers are going to growingly have as this becomes more frequent in the press and in headlines. And, you know, if it makes people uncomfortable, then they're just not the right person. And I think when it comes to, raising and crowdfunding, I think a lot of people think with what's safe. And what I'm trying to push up against is, what's safe doesn't actually build empires. What's safe does not build legacy. Taking those risks, taking those challenges, questioning the status quo, that's what builds it. And that's what you need to really innovate an industry.
So you're talking about lots of challenges that you faced. Was there a moment early in this path where you questioned yourself whether you could pull it off or not? Like, how did you push through that feeling?
Yeah. I think I started with faith in the beginning, and I think that carries me into the now. I do have my days where I cry and I feel frustrated, especially with crowdfunding, because I'm like, God, just like I want something to shake and I want it now. But I know it's a part of the process. And I will note what's so interesting is I feel like every single stage I have thought to give up or to quit, something very spiritual has happened. I remember I had so much anxiety because I was working on my deck for Josefina, and I had a full news day where I think I'd woke up at like 3 a.m. to cover something. So I was exhausted. I'm burnt out. I'm juggling too many things at once. And I said, I'm just going to go to the salon up the street and get a blowout. And so I'm in the salon, and the girl behind me says in Spanish that a girl named Josefina canceled her appointment. And the time I had given it to my mom goes, "That's your grandma's birthday." So a woman named Josefina who canceled her appointment, like the dates and the time, like the way it laid out, ended up being her birthday. And I was like, that's so coincidental. My mom was like, that's spiritual. Like that wasn't a coincidence. Like she was like, it was meant for you to hear. Or, going to a grocery store in New York and like contemplating, what am I doing? And then seeing a Lázaro candle, which is my grandpa's name, just randomly in the store. And, I was going to Guadalajara to actually go to the manufacturer to figure out, okay, am I really going to do this thing? I had the most vivid dream of my grandmother, and I only know it was a dream because I know she's deceased. And I was walking down the stairs, and she used to wear this like purple velvet robe and have her instant coffee every morning. And she's drinking her coffee and she smiles at me. And then I wake up and I go, maybe it's because I'm thinking about her, the brand's named after her. And I go to the manufacturer and I go through this whole presentation with them and with myself. And I realize I'm going to have to raise way more than I thought. And I go, maybe I should just give up. Like this might be the best time to quit. And while heading to the airport from our Airbnb, I see in huge green letters my grandpa's name. And I go, okay, that's the sign I've got to keep
Mm.
going. So it's just all these little, spiritual signs that keep telling me I have to keep going. And now with building community around Josefina, seeing how it's impacting people, how it's resonating with people, and we haven't even hit shelves yet, it's clear that not only do I need this as I process grief, but also other people need this as they want to feel either represented or want to feel in community with a brand.
Definitely. And I think quickly going back to the age conversation that you brought up, I think it's such an important conversation. So many people coming out of college today feel almost deflated and not like they have that power to go out there and just grab it and go. And I think your story is super powerful. In a sense, it gives a 20-something-year-old, right, the ability the knowledge to know that someone else is out there doing that and that they can do it too. And, Nat and I are both in our mid-20s as well. And we've worked in tons of different industries already. And I think it's interesting to see people coming out of school now post COVID. I think it's a bit different. It's like, if there's a vibe where like, oh, I just need to sit inside. It's not antisocial in a way. I don't want to say that. I think people are craving community more than ever, but it's almost like there's something just holding people back. And I love sharing stories like yours with our audience because I think it is proof that you can go out there, and people today are taking risks, are just jumping and saying, I'm going to do that. And balancing everything you've been talking about. I think you mentioned that you started this brand when you were still in graduate school. So going back to the balancing act, how did you balance those two roles at the same time?
Yeah. So when I started, I was an undergrad at Sarah Lawrence. I'm now currently in grad school. So it's a balancing act. I think most founders will tell you their social lives pretty much struggle or suffer in this process. But I did move back home. So I live at home. I am very close to my mother. She oftentimes brings me dinner because I might not have time to cook, or I might not have time to make sure I've eaten something healthy. But I think the best thing is establishing a routine and reducing opportunities for excuses has been my biggest thing. So I know, like, after this, I have class for 2 hours, right? So I know that's 2 hours of my day. I'm not going to be on my phone. I can't really take calls. Okay, cool. I know I have a Peloton bike on the side here in my room. Okay, there's 30 minutes I can take out in the morning to take care of myself and move my body because I know I'm going to be sitting at this desk for up to 15 hours today. I know that I have a 8 to 4 job, so I know I'm going to be doing this from this time period. And so it just takes blocking out time. And, maybe you just take 30 minutes to focus on your brand while you have a full-time job. Maybe you take 2 hours to focus on your brand when you have a full-time job. Maybe you wake up early and then spend 4 hours before you clock in working on your brand, and then 4 hours after work to focus on your brand after. I think that is the skill. I think that it can at days be overwhelming, but I think having a support system is what makes it possible because I don't have to do every single thing by myself. I'm able to, call my mom, call my brother, call my sister-in-law, call my sister, and have people help me in the areas where I don't have the capacity to do it because I'm so focused on, okay, I have to do my job, I have to build Josefina, and I have to do well in school.
Yeah, teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the brand Josefina is built on sustainability, cultural pride, and radical transparency, which I love. So what does that look like in practice, from like how the tequila is made or to how you show up as a brand?
Yeah, I think for me, I try to be honest in my day-to-day life, and I understand as a founder, I am representing the brand, whether I love that or don't. And so I try to be as transparent as possible, especially on social media, about what the founder journey looks like. I try to be as transparent as possible about the thought process, the building process, and also like the high and low moments. And I think that at this stage, that is the best way to show people that being radically transparent is more than just telling you what's in the bottle. I think it has to be a brand collectively. I think it has to be the team collectively. I think that when it comes to how you show up, while being a founder is a lot of work, no one can do it. No one's capable of doing it all on their own, right? So when it comes to building a team, cultivating partnerships, it really comes down to everyone being on the same page about what the values are, what the mission is, and working toward it. I think when it comes to liquor brands or brands in general, I think a lot of people love the marketing part, which is fun and sexy and fabulous. When it comes to having a message and trying to create a spine of your brand, that's the part a lot of people struggle with. And so I think that to me is what's most important, is really having that foundation.
Totally. Both Nat and I work in the human rights nonprofit space, so definitely aligning mission with brand is super, super important. What do you want people to feel when they're holding a bottle of your tequila?
Yeah, so I feel like when it came to my grandma had the audacity to always wear designer goods. Like, she would come off a Southwest flight with nothing but Louis Vuitton luggage, and I think the boldness of, not being rich and not being wealthy, but still loving luxury goods, and whether she had to save up the whole year for it or put it on a credit card, she was going to have it. And I always admired that as a kid, that she would walk into Neiman Marcus and didn't care what was in her bank account, and she was going to go shopping and no one was going to question her because she walked in as if she deserved to be there, because she did. And I think that audacity, especially for women of color, to know that you deserve to experience luxury and you deserve to feel luxurious, even if it's just in the moment where you're pouring a cocktail for yourself at night or hosting your girlfriends. I want people to feel like they're having a luxurious experience and that they're also deserving of it.
That's
Love that.
amazing. I love that. I can wait to hold a Josefina bottle myself.
Yes, I'm excited.
Uh, so when you picture the legacy of Josefina 10 years from now, what do you want it to represent in the industry and in your community?
Yeah. I think when it comes to me, what it means to the community is more important to me than the industry, because not only is the community the people that are supporting your product, pushing your product, buying your product, but also it's for them, right? And I think that they always will be before any industry. I think the community will always come first. And I think for them, I want people to know to dare to ask questions, but also dare to come up with solutions. And I really want people, when they see the brand, when they see me, to have faith in whatever they think is possible, because it's not unrealistic. People are doing it, people are trying, people are working toward it. It's just you have to have really the audacity and the boldness to go after what you want. As far as the industry goes, I really hope to question what the standards are and hope to question what it means to be a liquor brand in this landscape, especially in this current climate. And I also want people to know there's space for everyone. I think when you say, you're the first Black, Hispanic, female founded tequila, people get offended. They're like, well, I'm a Black brand and I'm a Hispanic brand. It's like, yes, but we're both, and we can all support each other and we can all hold hands as we walk through that door. And I think that that is what I would like to set for the industry, because there are so many people trying to be innovative across the spirits landscape. And I think we can all root for each other.
I love that. And kind of wrapping up this interview, I want to say thank you so much for coming on. We have 2 more questions for you. First one, what advice would you give to other women who want to enter the industry, either this industry in particular or other industries where they don't see themselves represented often?
That's a good question. I think it's two things. I think you have to, have the passion to keep you going, because it's not easy. I mean, I'm crowdfunding now, and like the amount of calls I take every day to try and nail a lead investor, it's not easy. And then I talk to friends in real estate and they're like, well, I make like 100 calls a day. And you're like, oh, okay, this is a part of the process. This is a part of the journey. So you have to stay passionate, because I do think no matter what you want to do, it's going to be challenging, right? Like anything worth doing, whether that's working out, bettering yourself, getting an education, is going to be difficult. And I think the passion is going to be the battery pack for you to get to the finish line. So I think that is the first thing. And I think the second thing is just, at least at bare minimum, try, right? That's what I always tell friends. I'll be like, well, I can't do it, but so-and-so is doing it. I'm like, well, have you tried yet? If you are sitting here talking about what you want to do rather than putting the effort towards it, you're not going to get further, and you're comparing yourself to people who had the audacity really to just make an attempt. And I think that's the biggest thing.
That's great, great
Definitely.
advice. I'm gonna take it myself.
Yes.
So all right, this is the last question and our personal favorite. If your life had a theme song, what would it be and why?
Okay, I feel like my theme song is Mariah Carey's Make It Happen. And
Oh,
before I go to class, that's what I play. And, in the mornings I play it, because I do feel like visualization is very important. I remember being like a high school student telling everyone I'm going to intern at Cosmo. Mind you, I didn't read Cosmo. I just thought it sounded really cool. And then my junior year of college, excuse me, that's exactly what I did because I had visualized it for so long, it came into my reality. And so I do think what you consume, whether that's podcasts, music, etc., is really important. So I love to play Mariah Carey's Make It Happen because I do think if you listen to the lyrics, it's about her journey from where she started to where she ended up. And, Mariah's an icon. So if you want to transform into something powerful, I think she's perfect.
This is the second time that this song has been chosen. Yeah, and the very first time someone repeats the song, which is amazing. I love that song a lot. Well, Katherine, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your journey with us. Is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Yeah, I would love to share with people where to learn more about Josefina and follow our journey. So if you're interested, you can follow us at Drink Josefina on Instagram and TikTok. We also have a website, which is josefinatequila.com. And if you're interested in becoming an investor and expanding your portfolio, we can be found at wefunder.com/Josefina.
Amazing. Thank you. So for everyone listening, make sure to connect with Katherine and follow Josefina everywhere. We'll make sure to include all the links in the show description. And of course, make sure to follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok at Goalgetter Podcast for updates and great content. And don't forget to tune in. We have bi-weekly episodes you won't want to miss. So see you soon.
Everybody.